How's it going, everybody? Lampini back again with another NFL predictions video. Today we're going to be covering Week 6. Before I get into that, though, we're going to do a little bit of change to the format here because I got a suggestion from one of my viewers to actually go over my overall record from week to week to see if I'm above 500 or below 500 with my predictions. So right over here you can see how my record has been the last couple weeks with my predictions. So I've been doing pretty good, all things considered, so I'm pretty happy about that. I think that I may have left out, because I know one video I left out a review. I missed one of the games, but as of right now, roughly, my record is 44-33, so I've been doing pretty good with my predictions, so I'm very happy about that. All right, so without further ado, let's get on to Thursday. All right, guys, so this Thursday night game is going to be quite the doozy. It's going to be the Washington Commanders at the Chicago Bears. I bet the NFL really regrets putting this on Thursday, especially after how last Thursday's game went. Well, this one can't be any worse than that, but it's against two basement dwellers in the NFC, including my Commanders. So, again, we're not bringing in the helmet. They're 1-4 now, so their season's basically over. I would still like to see them get this weighted primetime, though. But anyway, how did last week go? I honestly think the Commanders did pretty well. I mean, this is probably the best game they've played all season. They were able to move the ball really well. Their defense made a couple stops. They just lost a hard-fought game, came down to the last play. It would have been a big win if they got it because, this is a very winnable game, so they could have eventually came up to 3-3. Carson Wentz was 25 of 38, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, which happened at the end of the game. He had a 102.9 passer rating. So, this is an example, I think, of what you can get with Carson Wentz. He's not a bad quarterback, but, he's not good. He's not great. He's capable of throwing accurate passes down the field. He's capable of throwing dimes to people. He's capable of running an offense. It's just we're not very good, to put it simply. So I think the next loss on our record, Ron Rivera is going to be fired. I like him as a coach. He's a nice guy. He survived cancer, so all that stuff. But I think we just need a change. I think, you see what happened with the Giants. They got a new GM. They got a new head coach. They got a new everything. But I tell you what we need more than anything is a new freaking owner. But that's not going to happen. Dan Snyder needs to be taken out permanently for us to get a new owner. Either that or he needs to be forced out by the owners because there's no way he's going to relinquish ownership of this team. And we're going to be basement dwellers until that happens. As for the Bears, Justin Fields had, surprisingly, this is probably his best game of the season. He was 15 for 21, 208 yards, 1 touchdown for 118.8 passer rating. So he had a pretty good game. This is honestly, like I said, it's probably his best game of the season. They lost a hard-fought game to the Minnesota Vikings, who are now 4-1, so no shame there. The Bears are kind of in the same category as we are, where it's they are kind of basement dwellers in the NFC. So this game can really go either way. The Bears do have a good defense. I think if the Bears are going to beat us in any dimension, it's going to be their defense defeating our offense. It's kind of a shame that after 5 weeks of this season, the Commanders' season is already over. This is the inaugural Washington Commanders season, and it's over by week 5. So, oh God, we're a third of the way into the season. They might as well start working towards next season because it's the only way that they're going to be not a 7-win team. So I am going to go with the Commanders on this one, though, because, with how they played last week against a good Tennessee Titans team, if they play that well against the Bears, they should win. So, for the first time in a couple weeks, I am going to be going with the Commanders. And also, I apologize for some of these jump cuts. I yawned, 5 times in that one prediction. It's still early in the morning, but chronic yawning. Another jump cut. I just did it again. Sorry about that. All right. So, on to our next game. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. So, both of these teams did not do well. The Jaguars lost to the Houston Texans, gave the Texans their first win of the season. Trevor Lawrence was 25 of 47, 286 yards, 2 interceptions, 54 rating. So Jaguars are very up and down right now. They had that loss to the Eagles, which I can kind of understand. They had some pretty good games early on in the season a couple weeks ago, but just losing to the Texans is unacceptable for a team like the Jaguars when that division was yours to win. But the Colts and Titans both won, so they are finding their way back into the thick of things, which could be bad for Jacksonville. But they have a chance to reestablish here against the team that they always seem to do really well against, the Colts. Speaking of the Colts, they had an ugly victory against the Denver Broncos on Thursday night. Their offense scored 0 points. Matt Ryan was 26 of 41, 251 yards, and 2 interceptions. This is gut check time for Matt Ryan in terms of his career. I mean, he's on the older side. He's 37, which doesn't seem like it's old anymore for a quarterback when you have guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady playing. Well, when you have Tom Brady who's playing, he's like 8 years. This is another thing about Tom Brady. Is they're already calling Matt Ryan old when he's 37. Tom Brady's freaking 45 years old, and he's playing better than Matt Ryan. But I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know what's going on with Matt Ryan. I don't know if he's getting old and his body, he just can't make some of the throws that he thinks he can, and they're coming up short. I don't know what it is, but Matt Ryan is not having a good season at all. Now that I think about it, I really noticed this on the Thursday night game. All these quarterbacks that are on new teams aren't doing very well. Russell Wilson's not doing well. Matt Ryan's not doing well. Mitch Trubisky just got benched. I mean, I was going to say Carson Wentz isn't doing well, but Carson Wentz is doing better than Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson, which, how surprising is that to hear? But all these quarterbacks jumping around, I guess these people were trying to do what the Rams did with Matt Stafford, and it's just not working out that way. Very interesting. But who's going to win this game? God, it's difficult because neither of these guys did very well. But I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars have had a better season so far. The only thing the Colts really did that was noteworthy was beat the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. And other than that, they just have not looked good at all. So, and the Jaguars historically play well against the Colts, even though it's in Indianapolis this time. I'm going to be going with the Jaguars on this one. All right, guys. So next up, we have an interesting game here. We have the Baltimore Ravens at the New York Giants. The Giants are now 4-1. Pretty crazy. Everyone's been calling them a fluke, but when you beat Green Bay in London, that's something to hold your hat on. Daniel Jones was 21 of 27, 217 yards, 75 QBR. He still doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns, but they still win. Saquon Barkley had 13 carries for 70 yards and 1 touchdown. So I think that having Saquon healthy certainly helps them a lot. He's certainly the most valuable player on that offense. As for the Ravens, they had a very good home win finally against the Bengals. They had lost their last 5 home games, but they finally won this one. Lamar Jackson had a pedestrian game, 19 of 32, 174 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for a 71 passer rating. Mark Andrews had 8 receptions for 89 yards, 1 touchdown. So Mark Andrews still the premier target for Lamar Jackson. Can't side blame him. He is a phenomenal tight end, second only to Travis Kelce. So, again, another pedestrian game by Lamar. Every game Lamar has of this caliber lowers his status as the potential MVP. He just had those two games where he threw 4 touchdowns and ran for 100 yards and a touchdown. And everyone was saying he's going to be an MVP, but I think this is more so Lamar's typical game. Like, he can explode and have a phenomenal game, but I think this is where he usually stays. So in this game, it's weird because I feel like the Ravens are a top 10 projected team who constantly underachieve. Not constantly, but they occasionally underachieve. And the Giants, a team that no one expected to be in this position, keeps overachieving. I think I am going to go with the Ravens on this one, though. I think that they are not going to lose to the Giants, even though the Giants are 4-1, even though they looked very good, even though they beat top competition like the Green Bay Packers. I think that the Ravens are going to be able to right the ship a little bit, and I think that they're going to take care of them on the road. So next up, we got another interesting game between two 2-3 teams. We have the New England Patriots at the Cleveland Browns. So the Patriots have kind of been a non-factor this season, which is very interesting, which is very crazy with how relevant the Patriots have been for the last 20 years. They've kind of been irrelevant. But they had a very big statement game against the Lions where they shut them out. They allowed 0 points to the NFL's top scoring offense. That alone tells me that Bill Belichick is still an amazing head coach, still a great defensive mind, and they got it done on offense as well. So Bailey Zappi was 17 of 21, 188 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a perfect 100 quarterback rating. Perfect game manager, Patriot quarterback numbers. I guess this is what Bill Belichick likes out of his quarterbacks. He just wants game managers, and that's why everyone was calling Tom Brady a game manager, but he always made it work. Ramondre Stevenson, I hope that's how you say his name, had 25 carries for 161 yards, so very impressive on him there. Jacoby Myers had 7 receptions for 111 yards and 1 touchdown. So Patriots were firing on all cylinders in their game against the Lions, but that being said, the Lions also have the worst defense in the league. So they have the best scoring offense and the worst scoring defense. So it's no real surprise that the Patriots scored over 25 points. So Patriots look good. The Browns, they also looked good. Relatively speaking, they did allow that 1 interception at the end of the game that cost them the win. Jacoby Brissett was 21 of 34, 230 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception, like I said, in that one game, in that one play. And then again, Nick Chubb, 17 carries, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. This guy is on track for Offensive Player of the Year. I really start to get a grasp on how good certain players are doing when I shout them out every week. And Nick Chubb has been on here every single week. It's incredible. He's having an amazing season. He's finally coming into his own and having his definitive, top running back season. So like I said, the Browns are 2-3. The whole point right now for the Browns is to keep the ship, on track for when Deshaun Watson gets here. Now, I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to be such a night and day improvement. I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains that people aren't going to expect. I don't think the Browns are going to make the playoffs at all in the first place. I think that this is a long-term thing for the Browns to get Deshaun Watson in there. But Jacoby Brissett has certainly been doing his damnedest. He's certainly trying to keep the ship right afloat, basically. He's doing it with very average play, nothing too crazy or anything like that. But he's getting the job done. Well, they're under 500, so I guess he's not getting the job done. But I think that in a game like this at home against the team that they may see as inferior to them, I think they're going to win. The Browns have a very good defense that I don't think the Patriots offense is going to be able to capitalize on. And I think that Nick Chubb is going to really go off on the Patriots defense. And ultimately, the Browns are going to take this one. All right, guys, so next up, we have 2 teams who suffered losses last week that are looking to bounce back. We got the Cincinnati Bengals at the New Orleans Saints. So I'm not sure if Jameis Winston is supposed to come back in this game. Not Joe Burrow. I wrote Joe Burrow here. Here. I have another way around here. Andy Dalton. He was 16 of 24, 187 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So he's doing a backup's job, just kind of keeping the ship afloat, just like Jacoby Brissett, just like Bailey Zappi. A lot of backups playing this week, I'm realizing. This was Taysom Hill's game. He had 9 carries, 112 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also passed for 1. Taysom Hill, he had a game. This is a great showcase game for Taysom Hill, reminding people why he's still on the roster. He can just there's not a lot of guys like him, but you just give him the ball a couple times and he makes a difference. Alvin Kamara as well had his first decent game. 6 receptions for 91 yards. So the Saints, again, kind of a middle-of-the-road team here. Getting a win like this would really help them out. Get back to 500. And then as for the Bengals are also looking to get up to 500. They've had a disappointing campaign so far. They've played well, and they've only really lost to good teams, but they still have not really made it work. For example, Joe Burrow was 24-35, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. So very average numbers. It's going to be a tough game, but I think that this is an example of a game that if the Bengals want to be taken seriously as like playoff contenders, they need to win a game against an average Saints team. So I'm going to be going with the Bengals on this one. So this next game is one of the bigger layup games here. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this has been one of the Steelers' worst seasons in a very, very long time. As you know, it's been since 2003 that they've had a losing season. In the 15 season Mike Tomlin's been a head coach, he's never had a losing season. The Steelers are 1-4 now, and they're playing against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If they drop to 1-5, I don't think that they're going to finish above 500. I think once you're in that big of a hole, it's not going to make a difference. Kenny Pickett was 34-52, 327 yards, 1 interception, and a 74.8 QBR. Even though he doesn't look like he had a good game, he was able to move the offense pretty well. It seems like the MO for the Steelers is they utilize extreme talent, and that's what gets them by. You know, they barely even won against the Bengals week 1. So the Steelers might be one of the worst teams in the AFC right now. And it's weird because I always say they're a well-run franchise. They always seem to make it work, but that might not be the case this season. This might be a rebuild year for the Steelers. And it's strange because the Steelers never have rebuild years. They always make a run for the playoffs. They're always contenders. You can never count them out. But if they drop to 1-5, I think we finally might have to. Especially against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that's one of the best in the NFC. Tom Brady was 35-52, 351 yards, and 1 touchdown. Again, I still think it's amazing they're letting a 45-year-old man throw 52 passes. But this was Leonard Fournette's day. He had 14 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown, and 10 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown, bringing him to a grand total of 139 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. So Leonard Fournette has really revitalized his career moving from Jacksonville to Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers have really maximized his talents, and he looks like he's going to be a legitimate running back for years to come. What's going to happen in this game, though, the Steelers, not only have they lost their games, they just haven't looked good in any of their games either. It's not like the Commanders where they put up a good fight against Tennessee. They were leading a lot. It came down to the last play of the game. They were in the trench warfare, as I would say, where it's just extremely gritty. The Steelers just did not show up to the Bills. It was embarrassing. And the week before that, they didn't look good in their game before that. They didn't look good in the game against the Jets. It's just, the Steelers are in trouble. And I'm not saying Mike Tomlin's job is at stake because that would be foolish, but his perfect record of 15 straight winning seasons looks like it could be. So I'm going to be going with the Buccaneers on this one. All right, guys. So we got next up the San Francisco 49ers at the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons had a tough loss against the Buccaneers last week, and the 49ers had a commanding win against the Panthers. Jimmy Garoppolo was 18-30, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Jeff Wilson, their running back, had 17 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. So they were very dominant in this game. And again, the 49ers are showing that they are, NFC contenders, Super Bowl contenders. Because, like I said, it's similar to with the Eagles, where they just have an all-around good roster. And the fact they don't have these huge skill players, it's a bit misleading because they do very well. They killed the Panthers in their game. But then again, the Panthers aren't very good. They still won convincingly. As for the Falcons, I think that they've proved to a lot of people that they're better than we thought they were going to be. Marcus Mariota was 14-25, 147 yards and a touchdown. I think the same goes for Marcus Mariota. He's kind of having an okay season, kind of proving he's like a low-tier starter, which you can get that done on really good teams, but not against teams like the 49ers, not against teams like Tampa Bay. We play them at some point this season, so it'll be interesting to see how we do against them. We played them last year and we beat them, but I don't see if that's going to happen. This game, I think, is going to be a layup win for the 49ers. If they lose a game to the Falcons, even though it's at home, that's going to be tough for the 49ers to swallow because, like I said, they have high expectations this season. Even with Trey Lance out, Jimmy Garoppolo was able to slot in and it's a very familiar 49ers team. The 49ers team, very familiar with Jimmy Garoppolo under center. This is the same guy who took them to conference championships 2 out of 3 years. I think they're going to be okay, and I think they're going to beat the Falcons. All right, guys, so this game is primed to be a very interesting one because if you had this matchup last week, it would have been an easy pick. But both these teams are going in different directions here. We have the New York Jets at the Green Bay Packers. Jets coming off a very good win where they put up 40 points. The Packers are coming off of a disappointing loss where they barely lost out against the Giants. So both these teams are trending in different directions. The Jets, wow, they are looking pretty darn good. They are 3-2 right now, and they beat a very impressive Dolphins team that was 3-1. They put up 40 points against them. Zach Wilson was 14-21, 210 yards, a 99.3 rating. But this was the Breece Hall game. Breece Hall had 18 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 100 yards. So he had 200 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. This is what happens when you get nice young talent, is that they show out in some of these games and they really show you what they can do. Kind of what Jahan Dotson's been doing for us. When we haven't been winning games, but I digress. So the Jets have looked good. Again, they're 3-2. As for the Packers, they have looked good. It's just they haven't been the same 13-win team that they have been in the past. Aaron Rodgers was 25-39, 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had a pretty good game. He had an all right game, but it wasn't enough to defeat the Giants. The Giants had a game-winning drive at the end that eventually gave them the victory, 29-22. So this would be Packers going to Lambeau, coming back to Lambeau, home game. This would be a really, really solid rebound game for the Green Bay Packers. I'm just checking their record here really quick. Yeah, so they're also 3-2. But like I said, they had that bad week 1 loss, and they had this loss that it was a very winnable game for them. This is going to be a really nice rebound game, hopefully, for the Packers, if they can rebound and beat a team that maybe they're expected to win, because right now they're not winning their division. The Vikings are. The Vikings are 4-1. They're looking great. This is kind of what we've all expected from the Vikings, and now that they have a new head coach, they're finally able to reach their full potential. So, who's going to win this game, though? Like I said, I think the Packers are going to win this game. The Jets did look good last week, but I think that the Packers are coming home after a tough loss in London. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to rally the troops at home and say, hey, listen, guys, we can't go to 3-3. We need to keep up with the Vikings, or else we're not going to make those playoffs. So we gotta get our heads in the game here, and I think they're going to add a return to home against the Jets. So I'm going to be going with the Packers. All right, guys, so next up we have the Minnesota Vikings at the Miami Dolphins. So you want to talk about a team that looked impressive early on and has just collapsed. Miami Dolphins are that. Teddy Bridgewater went out very early in the game, so Skylar Thompson came in instead. He was 19-33, 166 yards and an interception. The typical third-string numbers there. Raheem Mostert had 18 carries, 113 yards and a touchdown, so they didn't put much up of resistance against the Jets, though. Like I said, the Jets scored 40 points. Dolphins have now lost 2 straight, but it's come in very unfortunate circumstances because they lost their game against the Bengals with a very, very scary injury against Tua, and then Teddy Bridgewater also went out. There's not much you can do with a third-string quarterback. I know that firsthand. We had one season where it was a couple of years ago where we were so injured we had to pick up an emergency 4th-string quarterback. And then even in the 2020 season, we had Heineke started a game, I think. Alex Smith came in at the end, but before that, we had Dwayne Haskins, we had Kyle Allen. We just had a carousel at quarterback. So I can kind of understand what the Dolphins are going through. It's just a shame because they were a very high-ranked team coming in with Tyreek Hill and all that. Tyreek Hill is still having a pretty good season. He's still having some pretty good games, despite all the difficulties that the Dolphins are having. Hopefully Tua can come back, and when Tua comes back, they kind of right the ship. Against the Vikings, though, I don't know. The Vikings are looking like one of the best teams in the NFC. Kirk Cousins was 32 of 41, 296 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Dalvin Cook had 18 carries for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, 12 receptions, 154 yards. So all the skill position players on the Vikings had good games last week against the Bears. Kirk Cousins is doing what he does best, being a very good starting quarterback. It's a 1 o'clock game, so he should be fine. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Vikings on this one because the Dolphins are still hurting. I don't know if Tua's expected to come back or in this game or not, but I think that their season is just kind of spiraling out of control, and they need to regain control. But I don't think it's going to happen against the 4-1 Vikings team. So I'm going to be going with the Vikings. All right, guys, so this next one I'm going to kind of glance over. We have the Carolina Panthers at the Los Angeles Rams. Both these teams had really bad losses. The Rams, I think, officially are not the team that won the Super Bowl. They have taken a noticeable step backwards, kind of like how they did in 2019 after they made the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Some bad Super Bowl hangovers, and the Rams are certainly not looking like Super Bowl champions. Matt Stafford was 28 of 42, 308 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Cooper Kupp had a pretty good game, though. 7 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown. So, again, Cooper Kupp still showing that he's, if not the best, one of the best wide receivers in the game. And Matt Stafford is having a very off year after one of his best seasons in 2021. So, they are playing a team that just fired their head coach, though. Baker Mayfield was 20 of 36, 215 yards, and 1 interception. Poor Baker. I mean, like, he was slotted in as a starter here, and he just has been given nothing to work with, and he has not played very well. But he's not in a very good situation to succeed. I would say I think the Panthers are a worse team than the Commanders right now. But see, the thing is, that's going to help the Panthers in the long run because they're probably going to have a worse record. They're probably going to get better draft picks versus the Commanders, who always try and stay competitive. They don't really ever tank. They're always, like, you know, with the exception of 2019 where we just got awful, 3-13. We've had at least 7 wins the last, 4 years. So we don't have a top 5 draft pick that'll give us the opportunity to really draft generational talent. Well, we drafted Chase Young, but he got injured. So, and he hasn't seen the field yet this season. Although he might play this week. I don't know. I have to look it up. But I digress. I'm talking about the Commanders in a game against the Panthers and Rams. But like I said, this should be a bounce-back game for the Rams. The Panthers are like the Commanders. They've kind of given up on the season already by firing their head coach. They're already getting started on 2023, getting pieces in place for that. The Rams should win this one. If they don't, and if the Panthers beat them on the road in the Rams in SoFi, the Rams are in big trouble. Like, this is not a team that we are, like, this isn't a team that has expectations of returning to the Super Bowl. This is a team that, are they even going to make the playoffs? You know, and that's very shocking with guys like Aaron Donald on your team. And Cooper Kupp, really. Because Cooper Kupp was Offensive Player of the Year. And then, I don't know if Aaron Donald won. No, Aaron Donald didn't win Defensive Player of the Year, but he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate year in and year out. When you have that much talent, and Jalen Ramsey, you know, an all-pro corner, probably the best corner in the league, but they just can't get it done. So they are going to have to against the really bad 1-4 Carolina Panthers team, and I think they will. All right, guys, so next up we have the Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks. These are two teams that have, you know, that have looked good in some weeks, looked bad in other weeks, like the Seahawks. They have definitely exceeded expectations. I remember at the beginning of the season, we were looking at them as kind of the worst team in the league when they got rid of Russell Wilson. But big props to Pete Carroll. Bigger props to Geno Smith, who, again, had a great game. He was 16 of 25, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, 139.7 QBR. So he had a really good game. Geno Smith is having a great season. And I think he's in the running for Comeback Player of the Year. For right now, it's between him and Saquon for winning Comeback Player of the Year. He's just playing phenomenally. Another player that's playing phenomenal, Tyler Lockett. He had 5 receptions, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I had him on my fantasy team, but I didn't play him. Stupid me. Maybe I'm going to have to switch him out with Antonio Gibson since Brian Robinson's in now. I'll have to make that change next week. I'm 1-4 in fantasy, by the way. I needed 10 points from Clyde Edwards-Helaire on Monday, and I didn't get it, so now I'm 1-4. So go me. But and then another team that is kind of irrelevant right now, the Arizona Cardinals. They have a great quarterback in Kyler Murray, and everyone was expecting them to make a run for the playoffs and do super duper well, but that's not really happening for them. Kyler Murray, though, had an all-right game. He was 28 of 42, 250 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He had a 60.5 QBR. So I guess he didn't have a very good game. Hollywood Brown had 8 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. So he's kind of making it work in his new situation. But the Cardinals have kind of been a non-factor this season so far. They made the playoffs last year, and they had an embarrassing loss against the Rams, I want to say. Well, the infamous Kyler Murray pick 6 from his own end zone. Really bad stuff there. And it just doesn't look like the Cardinals are a playoff team. It looks like they're going to be one of these teams that comes out with like 7 or 8 wins, and they are going to be in the hunt till the very end, but they're inevitably going to miss the playoffs. In this game, though, at Seattle, 2 very middle-of-the-road teams. With the way Geno Smith has been playing, I think the Seahawks are actually going to win. The Cardinals aren't known for having that good of a defense. And I think with how well Geno Smith and how efficiently Geno Smith has been playing, I think he's going to play a very efficient, low-mistake game. And I think the Seahawks are going to beat the Cardinals at home. What a surprise there. All right, guys, so now we got 2 high-powered offenses here, probably 2 of the best teams in the league. We have the Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're not doing anything at 4 o'clock, I would go out of my way to watch this game. These 2 teams, every time they've met each other, there's been fireworks. The 2 times they've played each other in the playoffs, the Chiefs have won. They blew them out in 2020, I believe, in the conference championship, and then that divisional game last year needs no introduction. It's one of the best games that's ever happened in years. We have probably the 2 best quarterbacks in the league right now, the 2 best young quarterbacks in the league. Both of them are coming off of, the Chiefs didn't really come off of a dominant win, but both these quarterbacks threw for 4 touchdowns, let's put it that way. Josh Allen was 20 of 31, 424 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. And his 2 top receivers also had games. Gabe Davis, 3 receptions, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Stephon Diggs, 8 receptions, 102 yards for a touchdown. They completely annihilated the Steelers. It wasn't even close. 38-3. It was terrible. As for the Chiefs, Mahomes was 29 of 43, 292 yards, 4 touchdowns, 117 passer rating. All 4 of his touchdowns went to his man Travis Kelce, who had 7 receptions for 25 yards. But again, had 4 touchdowns. So he was a goal line threat here. I remember last season when the Bills played the Chiefs, they blew them out. So there's been very different scenarios with these teams playing each other. The Bills have blown them out. The Chiefs have blown them out. They've had close games. Go out of your way to watch this game. You may be looking at a conference title rematch. This would mean that the Bills will have played the Chiefs, if they play each other in the playoffs this season, they will have played each other for 3 straight years. I can't think of a playoff rivalry that huge since the Cowboys and 49ers played each other in 3 straight conference championships. It's just incredible. Both these teams are firing on all cylinders. I have no clue who's going to win this game. I believe both teams are 4-1. Both teams are some of the highest scoring offenses in the league. I think they're both set. Well, I was going to say they're second place to the Lions, but the Lions put up 0 points. The Bills might have overtaken them. This game is going to be incredible. It's going to be a great game. I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with the Chiefs on this one. Depending on how this game goes, like if the Bills blow out the Chiefs, then the Bills are really Super Bowl favorites. If the Chiefs blow out the Bills, then, the powerhouse Chiefs are back again if they blow out the Bills. So it's going to be a great game. I'm going to go with the Bills, not the Bills. I'm going to go with the Chiefs at home. All right, guys, so now we're on to the Monday night game. The Sunday night game, we have 2 NFC East teams duking it out. We have the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys at the 5-0 Philadelphia Eagles. We can say whatever we want about the Bills and the Chiefs, but the team to beat right now is the Eagles, a team that is 5-0, looking like they're showing no signs of slowing down. They are looking great. Jalen Hurts as well, 26 of 36, 236 yards, 89.9 rating. He also ran for 15 carries, 61 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Eagles are legit. They look great, but they're going to be playing a Dallas Cowboys team with a great game manager, quarterback, and an even better defense. The defense is what's been keeping Dallas in a lot of these games. It's really crazy that when Dak Prescott went down in week 1, we were saying the Cowboys season was already over. And Cooper Rush has dug them out of that hole. Speaking of Cooper Rush, he was only 10 for 16 for 102 yards. Tony Pollard, 8 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. So this is how you know Cooper Rush is just being a game manager when they only ask him to throw 16 times in a game. You know, he completes 10 of them, he's doing his job, but they're not relying on him. And I think that they're looking to have Dak Prescott come back as well. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens if Dak Prescott comes back and has a bad game. The amount of incentive to bring Cooper Rush back in from the Dallas Cowboys fans are going to be very interesting. I don't think the Cowboys are going to do it. If they do, then that's going to be a big move. What's going to happen in this game? I think that the Cowboys do have a good defense, but I think the Eagles are way too high-powered. I think the Eagles are going to win this game at home and go to 6-0. Wow, who would have thought? The Eagles of all teams. All right, guys, last but definitely not least, we got the Monday night game. We have the Denver Broncos and the LA Chargers. So the Chargers had a very, very good win against the Browns. I dare even say a season-saving win. With the amount of expectations the Chargers have, they're 3-2, but you know we were looking at them as one of the best teams in the league right now. But they certainly showed us that they may not be one of the best teams in this league, but they do have one of the best offenses. Justin Herbert was 22 of 34, 228 yards and a touchdown. Austin Eckler had 16 carries for 173 yards and a touchdown. Mike Williams, 10 receptions, 134 yards. Even without Keenan Allen, Mike Williams has really stepped up to be the wide receiver 1. And I do not want to be the Broncos in this situation. The Broncos, and I'd mix them with the Steelers, are probably the 2 most disappointing teams this season. I don't know how the Broncos have squeaked by with 2 wins, but they have squeaked by. They have not looked good. And again, they didn't score a single touchdown. Russell Wilson, 21-39, 274 yards and 2 interceptions. I don't know what has happened to Russell Wilson. He seems to have switched bodies with Geno Smith, Freaky Friday style. And if Russell Wilson's career keeps going down this trajectory and he fails in Denver, there's going to be serious questions about why he was successful in Seattle. How much of it was because of Pete Carroll? How much of it was keeping Russell Wilson in check? I don't know. What's happened with Russell Wilson right now is the most bizarre thing because I don't think I've ever seen it happen. A quarterback just lose it overnight. I think that physically Russell Wilson still has it. I think he's going through something in his head right now. Whether he's trying to be the big hotshot quarterback, throwing touchdowns willy-nilly, putting the team on his back and winning Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady style. I don't know if he's trying to do that and he's not able to pull it off. I don't know what's going on with him, but he needs to get it together because he's the reason that the Broncos are having a disappointing season. It all falls on his shoulders when you have a 2 interception, 0 touchdown game where you don't even score a touchdown, where your entire offense doesn't score a touchdown, because that means that they weren't even in red zone position to even run the ball. So the Broncos are a team in disarray right now, and they spent all that money to get him. And if Russell Wilson doesn't pan out, the Broncos could have set their franchise back years. What's going to happen in this game? I think, God, with how flat the Broncos have been in every single one of their games, I don't see this being any different. And I think the Chargers are going to blow them out. I really do. I think the Chargers are going to get their offense going, and I think they are going to just pound the Denver Broncos into submission. That's what I think is going to happen. What can I say? So that's my predictions, guys. We have some teams on buys that I'm going to want to talk about as well. While we go over the stat leaders, I'll go over how each of these teams went. So we have 4 teams on buys right now. The Lions, Titans, Raiders, and Texans. The Lions, well, we know what happened with them. They got shut out against the Patriots. People are now asking for Dan Campbell's job. I think, oh God, I don't know how good of an idea that would be, because Dan Campbell clearly has won the locker room. And then getting in a new coach is really going to... I think all the success that they have had this season being the number 1 scoring offense is because of Dan Campbell. I think what they need is to hire a good defensive coordinator that can kind of really take the reins and help with the defense, because I don't think Dan Campbell's the problem. I think that they found their head coach and they need to stick with him. The Titans had a very definitive win against the Commanders. Derrick Henry again went off for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He got me 25 fantasy points. I didn't win, but I always like seeing Derrick Henry do well. He's my favorite player in the league. I think he's a generational talent, and it's always good to see him do well. The Raiders, their season seems to be about over as well. It pretty much sums it up when Devontae Adams and that other wide receiver run into each other on the field on 4th down. The Raiders are about as embarrassing a team as the Commanders, and to know that there are some other lolcows that aren't my team in the league makes me feel good. And the Texans finally got their first win of the season against the divisional rival Jaguars. And what did I say last week? The Texans will show up to random games. They're randomly competitive in games that they're expected to lose. This was an example of that. They managed to pull through with a win. So those are my predictions for Week 6. We have some very, very exciting matchups. Hope you guys enjoy your week. I will see you for Week 7 next time. Take care, guys.